Because the Democrats refuse to fund the DHS, we continue to see insanely long lines at airports, in the TSA customs line and security checkpoints and things along that nature. Elon Musk, of course, has interestingly come out and offered to pay for all TSA workers to go back into service until the point of the DHS actually being funded by Congress. What's truly interesting about this is the insanely long lines that you guys were probably seeing on social media pages over the last week or so that were illustrating just at times miles, it looked like, long lines of people trying to get to their own destination. No one likes, of course, being stuck in long lines. But let's go ahead now and take a look at what was going on, because there are some new reports that are coming out that maybe look like we're nearing the end of this whole dispute, and some other indicators that look like potentially this nonsense might continue on further. So let's take a look. The New York Post reports, quote, insane lines at New York City airports spark 3-hour waiting times as shutdown chaos spurs travel nightmare. The TSA funding crisis is wreaking havoc at Big Apple airports, with frustrated air travelers waiting up 3 hours just to check in for their flights. Quote, it's insane, stranded Texas traveler Chip B, number 66, said Sunday after spending 45 minutes on a pre-check line in LaGuardia Airport, packed Terminal B. Quote, if this is about getting shorthanded with TSA agents, come on, let's get them hired, end quote. Chris, a 54-year-old Connecticut resident, had harsher words for U.S. lawmakers, quote, get their expletive together, end quote. He snapped. That's what they need to do. And as, of course, you guys can see, these are insanely long lines. I do not envy anybody in these lines. I don't think in any of my days of traveling I've ever had to go through this type of hassle. So that's, of course, quite bad. Now, we, of course, as Christians, need to strive for patience. Patience, of course, which is a fruit of the Holy Ghost that comes from the gift of grace. But we should at least try to be honest that these lines are unrealistic and crazy, to say the least. The fact that the Democrats are not funding the DHS for political posturing, and so Americans are having to be not only subjected to potentially more crime, but also long lines, is just something that continuously never ceases to amaze me. The fact that the Democrats will throw people under the bus for some type of political advantage. The article continues, quote, this is a quotation now, quote, my big thing is TSA's work isn't a great job in the first place, end quote. He said while traveling to board a flight to Fort Lauderdale, quote, they're not getting paid while the politicians who are screwing everything up are getting paid, end quote. That, of course, seems to always be the case, right? With every single government shutdown, it's convenient that the congressmen and women remain paid, and yet our servicemen, if you will, through the agency of TSA, people who are in charge of at least trying to protect our security checkpoints at airports, are not paid. This is something that's ridiculous. We need to move forward as a country and embrace very common sense proposals. Common sense proposals like fund industry, fund the department that has to do with our own nation's security. This is nonsense. Now, I do agree with this point that he makes. This reality that when we look around, the fact is this: the majority of instances with the TSA are quite unpleasant, and it doesn't even provide that much security. The reality is, in my perfect world, we would move to more of a system that would say, let's have private security at airports that do their own job. But if we're going to have the TSA, and if we're going to subject everybody to go through their screening process, then let's get this thing funded. It's absolutely ridiculous that we don't do this. The article finishes up with, quote, one frazzled airline worker summed it up best for the Post, quote, it's crazy. The airport chaos has hit the entire country as Capitol Hill squabbled, has agents from the Transportation Safety Administration working without pay. Many are staying home or calling it quits while spring break travelers scurry to get home. TSA agents remaining on the job missed their first paycheck last week. The holdup is a feud between the GOP and the Democrats, who want to tie funding to the Department of Homeland Security, which includes TSA, to more oversight of immigration and customs agencies. Both sides are blaming the other, while line passengers mob airport terminals. Quote, I've never seen anything like it, end quote. Jared Everett in New York on vacation with his wife said the mess has already delayed his 4:30 p.m. flight to Charlotte by 40 minutes. When it comes down to basic principles, the function of this government needs to be the protection of its own population, its own people. If the government cannot protect its own people, then it shouldn't be in office at all. If it's fundamentally there to bilk in its own paycheck, in its own pockets, then it is an immoral government. An immoral government which is not sticking up for the rights of its own people, including the right to safety. And so if we are going to squabble amongst ourselves and say, particularly people on the left, that ICE should not be funded or that there should be greater oversight with ICE, that we shouldn't be enforcing next to any immigration or custom agency laws, or that we shouldn't be enforcing any immigration policy. That already is nightmarish in and of itself. We've broken down so much as a society, any type of understanding of what it means to be an American, that apparently now we can just throw off any type of immigration and border custom agencies, but also we need to delay everybody's time at airports because the TSA, which already does, in my opinion, somewhat of a mediocre job, needs to also be defunded. The reality of the situation is this, my friends. Democrats in office, and many Republicans as well, are willing to sell the American people down the road of danger so that they can continue their own political positions, their own political machinations, who are supported by radical bases. Radical bases that are ultimately, most of them, not Americans themselves, and or radicals who want to see the overthrow of the country as we know it. We have to get this stopped. This story is just one small microcosm of the problem in which we face. We need to fundamentally ask ourselves the question, what is the purpose of government? The purpose of government, in a very basic, natural, temporal sense, is to protect its own people, is to guard their security and to guard their rights as citizens. If the government can't protect its own people, if the government is more interested in protecting the rights of illegals, of migrants, of people who shouldn't be here, if the government is more interested in kowtowing to radicals, if the government is more concerned with the emotions of the theater kids that are trying to hold up the movement of Congress, then we need to say we need the removal of many leaders of government. Through peaceful means, of course, through voting, but voters themselves have to be much more diligent in who they nominate to be the representatives and senators, and they need to be much harsher when it comes to the failed promises of individuals. It's one thing, of course, if a senator or representative goes to Congress, they're legitimately fighting for the country, and because they happen to be a political minority, they don't get much done. But they're trying to. That's one thing, and you can forgive that. But it's another thing when individuals continuously get elected over and over and over again for decade upon decades, and all they end up doing is fighting for their own pockets or for the rights of foreigners. It's an absolute travesty. Let me know your comments below. Let me know your thoughts. I, of course, want to hear them. Give this video a like, share it around, and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, my friends, God bless.